ගරු රවි කරුණානායක මහතා.
Suti Katanayakamani, I stand up to ask question 27.2 from the Minister of Finance on the persistent central bank matters that are there on accountability. It's of deep growing concern that the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has repeatedly failed to meet its inflation and monetary policy targets for at least five of the last 6 quarters in the recent quarter, despite enjoying operational independence and legal mandate to maintain its price stability. Following the enactment of the new Central Bank Act, the Central Bank has granted enhanced independence in formulation and the execution of monetary policy. However, such independence must be matched by clearly defined framework of accountability. In this context, the critical questions arise: to whom is the Central Bank now accountable, and through what institutional or public mechanism is the accountability exercised? Honourable Speaker, I am taking this on Central Bank Act 5.2, which basically says the Central Bank shall be autonomous and accountable. Autonomous is there, accountable is nowhere there. So on that basis, the time and again, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has attributed its failure to meet inflation targets to fiscal slippage, external shocks and supply.
මේ දැඩි නීති රීති පමුණුවලා
තියෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ වාර කීපයකදී විභාග කොටස් තුන සම්පූර්ණ කරන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට අවස්ථාව හදලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පමණක් නෙවෙයි ලිඛිත විභාගයේ සමත් අයට ඖෂධ වේදියේ යටතේ පුහුණු
from adjusting policy rates in timely manner, undermining its credibility and its ability to anchor inflation expectations. Over the years, since its inception in 1950, Central Bank has been beaten fiscal authorities for maintaining a higher budget deficit, being a scapegoat for covering up its monetary policy failures. Central Bank Sri Lanka cannot do it anymore. Since the 15th of September 23, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka Act number 16 of 23 became effective. The Central Bank is now fully independent and free to make its own policies. This raises the following critical question. Honourable Speaker, 1. Why has the Central Bank continuously failed to meet the inflation targets over the past several quarters? 2. Has the Central Bank of Sri Lanka in its practice compromised its independence due to fiscal dominance or its external IMF political constraint? What is the structural reforms, if any, have been undertaken to ensure true independence and accountability of the Central Bank in Sri Lanka in context of inflation targeting? Why has Central Bank not proactively adjusted interest rates and exchange rate policy in response to emerging inflationary pressures? Has the Monetary Policy Board carried out any self-assessment or publicized explanations under the IMF program's accountability matrix for target misses? හයවෙනි එක මහ බැංකුව විසින් මූල්‍ය ස්ථායී භාවයේ සාධනය සම්බන්ධයෙන් දැක්වූ කාර්ය සාධන පිළිබඳව රජයේ තෘප්තිමත්ද නැත්නම් ආයතනික ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ සිදු කරන ලද්දේද? 7. මහ බැංකුව නිදහස්ව ක්‍රියා කිරීම හැකියාව ලබා දීම සඳහා රාජ්‍ය මුදල් හා මූල්‍ය අධිකාරීන් අතර සූක්ෂම හා කාර්යක්ෂම සාමාන්‍ය තත්ත්වයක් සඳහා මොන පියවර ගන්නා ලද්දේද? 8. මහ බැංකුව විසින් තම අසාර්ථකව රාජ්‍ය මුදල් ක්‍රියාකාරවලට වගකියමින් දැක්වුවොත් එම ස්වාධීනත්වයේ වාස්තුමයව අර්ථ නොදක්වන බව නොදක්වයිද? 9. මහ බැංකුව විසින් නොව පිළිගත හැකි පිටද විශේෂ ආයතන හරහා මූල්‍ය ප්‍රතිපත්ති රාමුව මහ බැංකුව වර්තමාන කාර්ය සාධනය පිළිබඳ විශ්වාසනීය ස්වාධීන සමාලෝචනයක් සිදු කරන ඇතැයි ගරු ඇමතිතුමා මේ සභාවට විශ්වාසයෙන් පැවසිය හැකිද? 10. 2023-16 වන මහ බැංකු පනත යටතේ 5.2 වගන්ති අනුව මහ බැංකුව ස්වයංක්‍රීය සහ වගකිව යුතු ආයතනයක් විය යුතුය යයි නියමිතය ඇත. එම නිසා මහ බැංකුව සහ එහි අධිපති වගකිව යුතු වන්නේ කාටද, කී වතාවක්ද, කෙසේද යන පැහැදිලිව සනාථ කළ හැකිද? මම ගරු මුදල් ඇමතිගේ ඉල්ලන්නේ මේ සම්බන්ධ අවංක පිළිතුරක් ලබා දෙන්න. මොකද මහ බැංකුව විතරයි අද රටේ තියෙන එකම ස්වාධීන ආයතනය. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවද ජනාධිපතිතුද කාටවත් යටත්ව කටයුතු කරන්නේ නැත්තේ. එතුමලා වෙනම ලෝකෙක ගමන් කරන දෙයක්. මම මේ කියන්නේ ආණ්ඩුවේ සහ රටේ අභිවෘද්ධියට. ස්තුතියි කතානායකතුමනි.
Honorable Speaker, the question number 1. inflation has deviated from inflation target primarily due to pronounced supply side deflation. As outlined in the published target breach reports, significant reductions in administered prices, costs, especially electricity, fuel, have really exerted a strong downward pressure on inflation in recent times. In addition, the deflation arising from supply side factors are beyond the scope of monetary policy. However, considering the overall economic development, mainly the macroeconomic development, central bank has adopted an accommodative policy stance by reducing policy interest rate by 8% from June 23 till July 2025. At the same time, it is noteworthy to understand that the exceptionally high inflation levels prevail in the country from especially in 2022 and 2023. So therefore, a brief period of lower inflation than the targeted inflation could in a way provide some relief to households and businesses. Number two, no, the Central Bank Act was enacted with effective from September 2023 that allows greater independence to the central bank. Accordingly, central bank is not subject to fiscal dominance or any other external constraints. Number three, the government, the enactment of the Act is a major structural reform. Accordingly, the Act establishes a governing board according to Section 8 to oversee the tasks and the general policy decisions other than monetary policy and enforces measures. Further, Monetary Policy Board Section 11 is established to deal with this flexible exchange rate regime in line with flexible inflation targeting framework to achieve and maintain domestic price stability. In support of the policy transparency and accountability, the Act mandates the central bank the publication of monetary policy framework agreement between the government of Sri Lanka, the Ministry of Finance and the central bank, outlining inflation targets according to Section 26, define the requirement of the central bank to submit reports to the Parliament and make them available to the general public in inflation targets specified in the monetary policy framework agreement is not met. So that has been done. In addition, so every 6 months, in 6 months, another report is published on inflation. The third report is on the state of economy, that is also submitted annually. Further, the Act prohibits the monetary financing and therefore there is no influence on the central bank activities. Question number 4. A flexible inflation targeting FIT, the framework, central bank has taken appropriate and prudent measures, the monetary policy actions, proactively while maintaining the flexible exchange rate policy as stipulated by the Act. Number 5, Monetary Policy Board carries out its independent assessment and review inflation performance under the IMF Extended Fund Facility Program that is being monitored by the IMF staff and reviewed by IMF Executive Board. These assessments are in public domain and on the IMF website as well. Number 6, yes, there are specific requirements prescribed in the Act in the event of deviation from the targets, and since 2 quarters were consecutively, 2 quarters were really missed, the central bank therefore has submitted and the necessary information to the Parliament, and these procedures and provisions are prescribed in the amended Act. And further, these targets, inflation target agreement was signed in 2023, that is valid for 3 years. Therefore, it will end in 2026. The target was 5%. That has been determined based on the facts, figures, and research. And again, they are within a band of 2% upside and downside. That means it varies, could varies from 3 to 7%. However, the downward, the slab, the 3% is not that much worried, since it does not really further hike the inflation. Number 7, Coordination Council has, which has been established under the Act, provides the coordination, especially on fiscal, monetary and financial stability policies between the government and the central bank. Accordingly, several coordination meetings had taken place from 2023 to as of now. 7 meetings taken place under our regime. 3 meetings have taken place. Number 8, as per the central bank's review, it is not applicable because the bank does not attribute any deviation from the inflation from the target to fiscal activities. Number 9, the Act endorses the monetary policy framework with regard to setting out the inflation target to be achieved by the central bank. Accordingly, this framework was signed between the Minister of Finance and the Governor of the Central Bank on 3rd October 2023. Number 10, the central bank accordingly ensured through regular reporting and parliamentary engagement. Section 26 mandates the Monetary Policy Board to report to the Finance Minister, and it has been tabled in the Parliament. When inflation deviates from the targets for 2 consecutive quarters, detailing causes, corrective measures and timelines to achieve the targets. Such reports are also made available to the public. Section 80 requires the central bank to inform the public about monetary policy implementation at least every 6 months. Additionally, the governor, the member of the governing board and the monetary policy board, every deputy governor and the deputy governor of central bank must appear before the Parliament or its committees every 4 months upon request. Accordingly, the central bank appears before the committee before the public finance as required. The governor should ensure that the central bank publishes and tables annual report within 4 months after closing of each financial year, reviewing policies and economic conditions. For the central bank fulfill its biannual reporting obligation by publishing monetary policy report each February and August, covering inflation movements, projection risks and policy actions which are based on their research. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ravi Karnanayaka, you may have just a minute for clarification, please.
Speaker, while I respect the answer you gave, it doesn't fulfill the question that I wanted to ensure that you basically get to know the gravity of the accountability. On the areas of basically the central bank coming on 2 attempts to the Committee of Public Finance or COPE doesn't mean the accountability. As for the governor and the central bank, there is no sense of direct responsibility to whom it comes. Through the process, there is a necessity or institution of this nature. Today, if you want to buy a car, if you want to buy a house, if it's investments overseas, priority sector lending on the basis of government salary outward is approved by central bank, but his own salaries is approved by himself. So the SMEs have been squeezed against the wall. So these type of things, the control is not in the hands of an elected finance minister like Anuradha Dissanayake, who is elected by the people. An unelected person is running the fiscal and the monetary and decide the fate of the economy of this country. Honourable Deputy Speaker, my question is, this country's economy has gone through too much of turbulent times, and it's necessary that we have the sense of accountability reporting directly. Please, you all have got 2/3, you all have got the necessary things. If there have been half-baked legislation that have come in, it's time to get it corrected. I'm saying with empirical evidence and with practical experience. This country can't go through another 22nd May type of operation.
Honourable
so therefore,
Minister.
my question to you, sir, is that if the sense of independence is there for central bank, what is he doing in Washington when you got to do Donald Trump's tariff negotiations? These are the sense of independence that is breached, Honourable Minister. So I would appreciate, with your knowledge, to take this on and ensure this corrective action is done with immediate effect.
Yes,
Honourable Deputy Speaker, as of now, the central bank operates and functions within this given framework and the autonomy not only for administrative purposes but also for the accountability purposes as well. So that is what. Through reports, actually, they have to go by information, facts, figures, and research, and not by emotions or any other saying. So therefore, they are accountable and they have to report. The reporting really matters in 3 types of reports. If there are any deviation, of course, we can question and take them accountable and raise questions and ask. As I just highlighted in my answer, so this, so I am just answering this particular inflation, specifically this inflation target. It is very clear that the 5%, if you take last 20-year period, because they have taken the information into account. So our average inflation lies 5%. Of course, due to the crisis period, it has gone up to 70%. That is a different story. That is the reason why now it has come down and we are experiencing a kind of deflationary situation. Now it has gradually moved up to 0. So therefore, 5% has been decided based on facts. In the future, if it is not appropriate, we can accordingly change. As of now, so they are working according to that. And one thing I must tell you, as far as their autonomy and accountability and practices are concerned, in fact, price and financial stability has been achieved. Now we have to work on that to take the country forward for economic growth and development.
Honourable.
You're watching the Lifetraveler channel.